talked to the head of all the border guards down there, the head of the union. I asked him straight up, kids are coming over the border with numbers written on them, phone numbers and addresses. Do we check those out? He said, well, we call them. Is it possible that we're sending them into known prostitution rings or sweatshops? He said, it's not possible. It is absolute. We are using American tax dollars to ship children into known prostitution and sweatshops.
Some children?
Well, who knows?
Okay.
We don't know. I said, are you...
So what kind of checking do they do? So
They call the number and say, do you know about this child? They say, yes. Will you receive them when they come? Yes. I said, is it possible that that's a prostitution ring? He said, we know enough to know that in a number of cases, it has turned out to be absolute sex ring. It has turned out to be an absolute sweatshop. I said, how is this possible?
Well, what do they do?
And he said, it is happening.
What do they do then if they know that that's happening? Where is the U.S. Attorney's Office? Where is the...
Here's the
good question,
you have to re-ask that question when we come back.
Okay.
Because we're coming back.
Like 08, 09, smartphones came on, and kids they stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives. And so we saw the biggest spike and the highest levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and suicidality since records have ever been kept. And it's just continued on and on and on. And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this. So it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating bond, but, well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the places that they could be sick, because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Well,
what's going on, everyone? Saucer King here today. I think Dr. Phil is bringing back common sense. You saw the 2 intro clips that I had put in the beginning for you guys, that he was pretty much schooling the view. And it seems like Dr. Phil, I don't know, since he got free from Oprah, he's like, I can really say what I want now. He hasn't turned back ever since. So I kind of want to share a video, but also I want to highlight the border issue that we're having going on right now. You know, the issues that our politicians have put on the back burner for their darling Ukraine. And I promise you guys an inconvenient truth surrounding why I believe that the U.S. presidents and politicians, why they care about Ukraine so much, why they want to put so much foreign aid so much. And that's going to come later today. Right now, I'm kind of busy, so I won't be able to do it in a timely manner. So I'm going to put out this video just to be real quick so you guys are aware, at least have something for today. Yeah, but Dr. Phil's bringing back common sense. He's bringing back common sense about the border. And this is something, the funny part is, people will say, oh, Kenny, conservatives, Republicans, they're only being partisan about the border because just to be partisan, as if Republicans are like Democrats, like conservatives are like liberals. No, we actually agree on the principles. We're saying, hey, the solutions, the compromise that you made on the Senate bill for the border issue is not going to solve the border issue. Here's a clip from, I don't know when, I think it's 2000s it looks like, but this is Bill Clinton literally saying word for word, bar for bar, what we want on the border. And Democrats used to be common sense about it. And this is what I'm saying. I think liberals kind of lost the plot that is not about them, it's about the country. And their solution, their process, their approach to the border is not effective to solving the problems at the border. This is the argument that conservatives have been saying. This is why I believe that conservatives can afford the government to shut down, because it's not their fault. They're like, yo, why would we listen? Like, think about it logically. Why should the Republican Party listen to the Democratic Party when it is the Democratic policies that have created the incentives for immigrants to come in this country, illegal immigrants to take advantage of this country? Look at it. Just look at this. Just look at the policies that Democrats push. If you want a secure border, Democrats don't have the solutions. The Democrats ain't got the answer, Sway. Let's take a look at this clip of Bill Clinton saying exactly word for word what conservatives today in 2024 want at the border. Let's take a look.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
So you seen that? You heard that? Like, like Dr. Phil. I really think that I think that's Dr. Phil's Democratic Party. I literally believe Dr. Phil's like, yo, what's going on with these people? So I want to do this clip about Dr. Phil. He's talking specifically about the border because I think it's very important. But I think a lot of liberals like to sit here and pretend, oh, conservatives shot down the compromise because they don't really want to fix the border. No, we're not like you. We're not like you. We're not partisan just to be partisan. We're saying, yo, this ain't gonna fix anything. And then then Democrats are going to sit here, run, and pretend that they actually did something at the border when they did nothing. This is the instance of them trying to look good than actually being good. But I digress. Let's get into this video with Dr. Phil.
One of the things you also talk about in the book, We've Got Issues, which Jesse Rose Primetime endorses enthusiastically. We don't want to make anybody else uncomfortable. And because we're so afraid of making everybody else uncomfortable, we're making ourselves uncomfortable. You went on to The View today, and you talked a little bit about COVID and that effect of the lockdowns on children. Maybe people were uncomfortable. Let's listen.
You're trying to save kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this. So it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating bond, but, well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't because we kept them out of the...
And you know the funny part with liberals too is that they can't just admit that, hey, yeah, we got it wrong. Conservatives were saying for the longest time, yo, kids are not like the kids have they're less at risk for COVID. We've been saying this since we blew in the face. I think even months in some states like Florida. Oh my God, you're gonna kill everybody. No, this is this risk aversion that I'm noticing in the liberals, and I think it come across it's like it's very feminine. Like feminine are very risk averse, right? When I go rough house with my son, my wife is the one that's going, hey, careful. But I'm like, yo, like and it's important. I don't know. I'm taking this somewhere else, but there's a thing that fathers kind of teach children, girls and boys, is how to properly assess risk. And I think we've been catering to more of a feminine worldview when it comes to this stuff. And I think this is why we were not able to do the logical thing. We instead did the emotional thing. Oh, lock everyone else. We got to protect everyone. We got to save everyone. That's the sentiment that Whoopi here is trying to portray here. And I see it too many with liberals. I think liberals are too emotional at times. I think they use very emotional arguments instead of defending their stuff on logic. They pretend they have logic, but really all it is rationalization for their choices. And I mean, I agree with the rationalization, but the evidence has shown that the kids, it was a mistake. It was a mistake to close schools. That's the reality. And to pretend that, oh no, it would have been worse, I think is a cop-out. But you know, that's just my thoughts.
the places that they could be sick because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
All right, so one of the best parts about the book is you talk about the need to rely on facts and stress facts. And why do you think some of those women on The View, who we love dearly, they wanted to talk about the narrative of the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, here's the thing. You can't just make up facts, and that's what's happening right now. I think we've got, well, I call them the tyranny of the fringe. We've got these fringe factions that are trying to rewrite history, rewrite science, rewrite biology.
Question for Dr. Phil, though. He says there's a fringe. So, this is the argument they're trying to both sides this. But who control mainstream media? Overwhelmingly Democrat, overwhelmingly liberals. Education, overwhelmingly liberals. I mean, I'm just saying, science. Who's politicizing science? Conservative scientists or liberal scientists? Who has domination over college institutions? Liberals. Liberals have an ideological dominance in a lot of these places, and they're flexing that power in a very Machiavellian way to skew research, to skew information, to only put out facts that support their narrative. This has been something that a lot of scientists has been calling out. Scientists getting kicked out, right? I did Roland Fryer, the black economist, that proved that there's no racial bias when it comes to policing. He got condemned. He had to walk around with security for 30 days because he put out that report. 4 minutes of putting out the research, people already were calling it BS. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because it doesn't fit a narrative of the cultural dominant ideology. So what I think Dr. Phil is actually having a problem with, it's not the tyranny of the fringe. It's tyranny of an ideological bias. We see it with Google. Google is overwhelmingly liberal, overwhelmingly Democrat. If you look at their donations, money talks, bullshit walks. Who Google employees overwhelmingly donate money to? Almost at a 99% clip, the Democratic Party. Out of all the thousands of employees that work at Google, only 600 of them donate to the Republican Party. Imagine that. Ideological bias, I think, is the tyranny of the liberal, the tyranny of the left. I think that's what it is. I think that's the tyranny of the fringe. And liberals, you guys are so, I guess, this is why I'm saying liberals are emotional. You guys like to seem good. You like to be good. You like to believe yourselves to be very righteous people, that progressives, they push you around almost, right? Because you can't really stand up to them because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. I'm just saying, there's studies out there that they say liberals are more agreeable, but I don't see it. I see they only agreeable with people that's on their side, and progressives use that to push you down their direction, to push you doing authoritarianism like COVID lockdowns in the face of facts, in the face of new evidence to support, hey, this approach works better. Look how they defended Andrew Cuomo. They was like, oh, New York is doing way better. Andrew Cuomo is the standard for how to treat COVID because he followed the narrative. And Ron DeSantis followed the evidence, the science, the facts. And he had less death per capita compared to New York. While Andrew Cuomo was sending elderly people to their deaths, Ron DeSantis was like, hey, yo, the elderly people locked down, but all the young people, they don't need to lock down. Nuanced approach, data-driven approach. They trust politicized science, and Ron DeSantis trusts the science. That's the biggest example of the narrative that Jesse Waters brought up. And Dr. Phil needs to recognize that. Is that no, it's an ideological domination by one side, and since they have the ideological domination, they don't get exposure to contrary views. They don't get a balanced approach to problems and situations and views. And this is what I noticed in college. This is why a lot of college kids, I think this is why progressive education creates mass stupidity, is because it's not balanced out by a contrarian view. If you don't allow the contrarian view to express itself, you'll fall into your own destruction. You'll lead yourself into your own destruction. But I digress. Let's continue.
Just pretend that facts aren't facts because they don't want them to be. But you know what? They are. And we've got facts that have been there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and you can't just change them because you don't want them to be the truth. The fact of the matter is that we had a pandemic here. children were not very vulnerable to that. Now, we want to protect everyone, right? But children were not very vulnerable to that. But what they were vulnerable to was disrupting their lives. We know that we had the highest levels of anxiety, depression, and loneliness, as well as suicidal ideation and suicidal attempts, that in 08 and 09 that we've seen since they started keeping records.
My thing is that one thing I noticed with liberals is that they focus a lot on the short term versus the long term, right? They want a short term fix. Oh, let's fix it. Let's just do something. The common call for action from the left. Do something. Even if doing something in the immediate will cause a long-term ramification, they don't care because they don't see the long-term ramifications. And I think this is the problem with us not thinking logically and not thinking in long-term perspectives, not thinking in second order thinking. There's a mental model where you don't just look at the initial benefits of something. You look at, okay, what's the initial benefits in a 5-year stretch, a future stretch. And I think a lot of Democratic voters, they don't think very long-term. They think very short-term because it's easy to flex short-term solution. Look what we did at the border. Look, we gave everybody $2,000 free money. Everyone's happy. Oh, my God, the Democrats are the best party ever. They gave us $2,000 free. They helped us out. They bailed me out of my hard times. And then that $2,000 that they gave you, the free benefits they gave you, long-term, it causes inflation that causes even a bigger problem. That causes more problems down the road. And then they're going to sit here and try to do a quick fix for that. I think sometimes the policy prescriptions of the Democratic Party, it comes across to me as patch jobs. That's honestly what I think, right? But I'm going to give this one more minute, and then I'll wrap up the video with my final thoughts.
That just continued to build, and then COVID hit, which caused it to spike. COVID didn't cause it. It started back in 08 and 09, and it kind of correlated with the smartphone dropping, where kids stopped living their own lives and started watching others live their lives. But they knew that when they shut the schools down. You pull out the support system, and as well as pulling out the support system, when you pull out the support system, you disrupt their educational development, their social development, their emotional development, and you also take children that have been subject to emotional abuse and sexual molestation, and you take them away from the mandated reporters who can keep an eye on them, and referrals to Department of Child and Family Services dropped 40, 50, 60% across the nation. What did we do? We sent them home and locked them up with their abusers, so nobody could watch them. And what did they say when they shut the schools down? They said, well, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we know. No, you're not. You knew better, and you knew it at the time, and you didn't have a plan to reopen those schools.
And that's evidence to Ron DeSantis, right? Ron DeSantis was doing this, teachers unions. Then teacher unions came out pretending like they wanted schools open the whole time, like trying to take credit. Like it's so baffling to me. Like the problem I think I have here is the fact that a lot of these people who push for school closures, they had other reasons for why they wanted to do it, and they try to mask it and actually try to mask it with, oh look, we're just trying to look out for the kids, but we don't want to go to school unless you give us investments in this, you raise teachers' wages. I'm like, yo, what does that have to do with opening schools up again, right? Like teachers unions used in 2021, they used COVID as a negotiating chip to negotiate higher salaries, things that they personally can benefit from. And I'm like, wow, show me who you really, or show me why you really teach for, right? Like it wasn't done for the benefit of the kids. And he made the point about like how they locked up essentially people with their abusers. I think Democrats and liberals, many people on the left, they have a problem with understanding trade-offs. Like there's no such thing as a perfect solutions, only trade-offs. And you go with the trade-offs that gives you less problems, because every decision is gonna give you some kind of con to it. And I think that's the reality, and a lot of people don't want to understand that. And there's no perfect policy. Every policy has a trade-off. It's just which trade-offs are you willing to make? I think that's the reality that we need to recognize as voters and as American citizens. But I'll leave it off there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What you guys think about Dr. Phil schooling the view on the immigration. I was surprised about the immigration one. And COVID, specifically COVID, I think he did a really good job kind of portraying the centrist kind of left left of center view. But that's just my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.